Am I perspiring? No. It's just the rain. These fools could never make me sweat.
What's going on, guys? LoganJYA Drytron here, back again with another video. Today, we're going to be talking about countering them Bystial cards, those really pain in the butt things that make it difficult for us to play our favorite deck. There's no denying it. The prevalence of the Bystial cards since the release of Darkwing Blast is putting us at a bit of a disadvantage. But I'm going to show you some of the ways, some of the obvious ways, some of the less obvious ways of how we as Drytron players can try to best counter them. And stick around to the end of the video. We do have a replay to show you at the end. And if you guys want to see the next iteration of our Drytron deck profiles, be sure to get us above 100 likes, and I'll happily show you, as well as some test hands at the end of that video and some replays. Whatever you guys want to see, you let me know. But I don't want to preface this too much. Let's be sure to dive into this little discussion about countering the Bystial cards. And without further ado, let's get into it. Alright guys, LoganJYA Drytron here, and today we're talking about countering the Bystial cards, you know, the Bestieds as they're known as in the OCG before they came over here. And these cards, everyone's been saying this is the doom of Drytron. Deck's not worth playing, deck's dead after these cards come out. I'm going to let you know that is not true, 100% false. We are still able to play, we just have to adapt. That's what we do. It's the same thing we did when Arch Nemesis Protoss was running around in all those Sword Soul decks. We're trying to stay resilient, and I'm going to show you some of the ways we can do this. Some of these are a little bit on the more obvious side, and I've talked about them in previous videos and on my live stream. You can check that stuff out on the channel. Links are all in the description down below, you all already know. But I am going to walk you through each and every option and let you know the pluses, the benefits, and the downsides of each option, and which build it's best to play which option in, and kind of why that is. So without further ado, let's hop into countering those dirty Bystial cards to the best of our ability in Drytron, baby. Let's get into it. Alright, so the first thing I want to talk about is this card right here, and again, the obvious stuff we're going to get out of the way in the beginning. We'll get to the more in-depth descriptions going forward a little later in the video, but we got to talk about the obvious stuff first, and that being Ghost Bell, right? So obviously, you can pitch this card from your hand to stop one of the Bystial monsters from special summoning itself and banishing one of your Drytrons from grave. Now, one thing I'm going to talk about right here at the beginning, so you don't want to skip this part. One important thing to remember about the Bystials is that you have to control a monster for them to be quick effects. So I'm going to flag this right now. When you're playing Drytron, you want to alpha pitch, say your hand is Alpha, Ben 10, Zeta, you want to alpha pitch Ben 10 as your first play. You don't want to put a monster on the field before going for anything. You actually want to do this because then your Ben 10 can search and your Alpha can search. You can grab another Ben 10 and an orange light to play around Bystial cards, alright? So that way if you have any other fairies in hand, you're 100% safe. If not, you can put on the illusion that you're safe. It's all of this good stuff. So you got to keep that in mind 100% when you're playing. I just want to get that out of the way. It's a pretty basic thing, but I think everyone should be aware of that. That's how we should be playing going forward. And I'm mostly talking about in the Perfection build and maybe the Vanity's Ruler builds. Other builds, your results may vary, right? And we can talk about those in future videos. But anyway, like I said, Bell can just stop their effects. You use this, treat it like a Call by the Grave for the Bystial cards. You pitch it. Now, here's the downside of this card, obviously, is it's not destroying. It's just negating the activation of that effect. They cannot attempt to do it again. So you get it out of the way. But if they have multiples of them, it's unfortunate for you because you're only going to be able to stop one of them. So you still got to play as optimally as possible. But this is a great card to stop those one-of Bystial monsters coming in clutch. This is an obvious one, though. So let's move on to one more obvious one, and that's the Triple Tactics Talents. If you guys remember, you saw our most recent deck profile with my boy Esteban. He was telling us about how important Talents is and how, especially going into the Bystial cards coming out, which are now out officially, it was going to be really, really good, because if they do hit you with it, you can either draw into additional gas, or if you already have said gas, you can take a look at your opponent's hand and rip out a problematic card or another interruption that they were planning to hit you with and continue to go for your full combo. This is pretty obvious stuff. Like I said, it makes sense why you would choose to play these cards. So I'm not going to explain it too much. I would say the downside of this is that it can be a brick, you know? Like if you are running into a situation where you're a card shy from combo, but you have Talents, it's not doing anything on its own. So that's definitely a downside, and that downside also applies to the Ghost Bell. But the bright side with the Ghost Bell is that you can use that as an interruption on your opponent's turn, and this one, you cannot do that. So I still think Talents is insane. I think it has a really good home in the Vanity's Ruler build specifically, and for the Ghost Bell in particular, I really like it in the Perfection build, alright? and I just genuinely think those are the best homes for these particular cards. The Bell, because you're already playing hand traps in the form of the Orange Light's extremely more heavy than you are in the Vanity's Ruler build, and the Talons because it's a bit easier to kind of play through the interruptions of the Bystials. You're not trying to counter them with things like Orange Lights. You're trying to play through them and still establish that Vanity's Ruler, because as soon as you get that ruler up, not only are the Bystials not going to become a problem anymore, but nothing is going to be a problem anymore. So that's why I think each one is better in those particular builds, but those are the basics, getting that out of the way. Now, I was just talking about Heralds, right? So I'll talk about Herald the Orange Light for a second. I will tease this fact. If you want to see my new deck profile for the newest undefeated Drytron list that I've been testing, I would love to show it to you. Let me know in the comments, and let's smash 100 likes on this video, and I'll absolutely show it to you. In the new Perfection build that I'm trying to do Bystial ready, we are actually playing triple Orange Light in the main. This is just like back in the day Drytron. We used to do the same thing. It's like we're doing what a Shizu is doing before they even exist. We're getting ready for it. And this lets us counter a lot of crazy things, not just the Bystial monsters, but also things like D-Shifter when we just hard open it. This is an additional means of call buying the Graven cards. It's very similar to what we're doing with pre-preparation of rights, and we'll talk about that in a second. But the whole point is we are able to stop the Bystials before they're even a problem. We search the Orange Light super early in our combos, and that lets us play safe. Like I said earlier, when you open Alpha Zeta Ben 10, playing right now, 2022, you want to go Alpha Pitch Ben 10 so you can line up that Orange Light as fast as humanly possible. Make the Bystial monsters a non-factor, okay? So that's what I'm saying. And hard opening it sometimes makes it even easier. Of course, the downside of this card, it's not a Ritual monster, it's not a Drytron monster, it can be a Brick, 100%. So we got to be honest with ourselves and acknowledge these facts when we're talking about these things. But Orange Light is still super duper clutch option, and obviously I think in the Perfection build right now, what I'm testing and what's been working really well for me is 3 copies in the main. If you guys want to see that list, help us smash 100 likes, and I'll absolutely show it off. But more basic stuff out of the way. Like I said, in that particular build, we're playing the pre-prep package and the Herald of Perfection. So obviously, this is another really easy counter to the Bystial monsters. So you basically just use the pre-prep. It's a must-ash card at worst. At best, it's going to save you from any Bystial monsters because you're going to be establishing an early Herald of Perfection, which can negate any of the Bystial monsters. Basically, if you open up with a pre-prep, you want to turbo out anyway into Ben 10, so you can line up this Perfection summon, and that's going to keep you from the Bystials for the entirety of your combo. You put up your full board with the Beatrice on field to send Trias Herartica to play around Dark Ruler and Droplets if they happen to have it. Same thing with lining up as many Orange Lights in hand to play around Dark Ruler and Droplet. It sets you up for a win, baby. It works really, really well. I talked about this at length in my most recent profile, and I'll talk about it even more because we are going even further in on this package if you guys want to see the new profile, so just let me know. But absolutely, guys, pre-prep is one of the best ways we can counter it. Downside, of course, is the bricks. This card is the make or break. If you open these two, you just cannot use the pre-prep. It is actually saddening. So when you have that, obviously, I'm going to acknowledge how much it sucks. It really does suck. But, you know, you got to choose your risk versus reward here. This is literally Pot of Greed. It is a free +1. We got to stay aware of that fact. That's a pretty darn good thing, and I think this build in its own right has a lot going for it. And also, I will flag, it does struggle against the branded tier element deck because their ability to chain block is scary. So decks that can chain block really, really heavy, you got to be a little careful, and you got to negate early against them. So just stay aware of these kind of things when you're playing a deck like this. And that's pretty much it. Obviously, it's good against the Bystials. You negate them early by setting up an early Perfection. It's that simple. Next thing I want to talk about is playing the Vanity's Ruler build, okay? So now, I could even see a case be made to play additional copies of Ruler if you wanted to open it early, but that sounds absolutely terrible, so I probably wouldn't legitimately recommend doing that. At the same time, though, establishing an early Ruler is another means of circumventing the Bystial cards. Now, here's the downside. Of course, you're going to need to put monsters into play in order to tribute summon for the Vanity's Ruler, which means there will be opportunities for your opponent to summon the Bystials. In fact, that's why I think Vanity's Ruler is actually not one of the better options to play against them, because once they see you search it, they're going to be like, oh, I got to start using these before he's able to establish 2 monsters. Any smart opponent, will be able to tell what to do against this card after you search it. So that's why I'm thinking this might not be one of the better builds to play going into the Bystial cards. But hey, we got to stay aware. I still think it's actually really, really strong, because if they waste them early, and you can establish this later, you can actually use Natasha to steal their cards, use that as the tribute fodder. There's still a lot of good going for it at the same time. I'm not here to discredit it. I'm just saying it might be a little easier to play around and trying to sack your opponent with orange lights and perfections. So just putting that disclaimer out there, I still think this is an insanely strong build, and when you're playing against the best deads, you want to put up the Vanities ruler early. It's that simple. Next card I want to talk about is another thing that Esteban brought up in our recent interview and deck profile as a potential side deck option, the Chaos Hunter, okay? Now the Chaos Hunter, of course, we cannot summon it on our own turn, so don't even think about it. It obviously is unfortunate in that fact. But going second against the Bystial monsters, this is a better Lancia because you summon it on their turn, and then they actually can no longer use their effects when your turn rolls back around unless they out this card. So, of course, you have to be strategic in when you drop it, but it is a decent option in the side deck. If you can find the space for it, just like Esteban did, it might be something to consider worth siding. So when you go first in those matchups, you can set yourself up, or second in those matchups. Now, if you're going first, of course, like I said, you cannot special summon this if they try and best edge you, but it is still a really, really strong card. It has dual purpose as well against the Floowandereeze. That's something that Esteban was bringing up big time, is that if you bring this in against the Floowandereeze cards, you can actually just tribute summon for this instead of Vanity's Ruler, and that is locking them out of banishing, which is something that is so vital for that deck. Now, again, it's more of a side deck option. Same thing with the Bell. I don't really like maining Bell personally. I think it actually has an amazing place in the side deck where you can bring it in going first or second depending on the matchup. But Chaos Hunter would definitely be chilling in the side deck, so that goes without saying. But another thing to consider, and again, huge shout out to Esteban for bringing that up during our most recent interview and profile. Now the next thing I want to talk about is kind of just a cool thing that we can do as Drytron players if we are hit with the Bystial monsters. Let's say early on in a play, we get hit with the Magnamut or whatever this guy's name is, alright? We get hit with that, I tell you what, there's a point in the play where we often find ourselves making a Beatrice to continue playing onward. If we are able to do so, still have the gas to play after getting hit with one of the Bystial monsters, what we can do is use Natasha to steal their Magnamut the same way that we would, because it's a level 6, and then use it to make the Beatrice with the Diviner we already have on field. It's just something I wanted to mention, is that if we get hit with these cards, it actually enables us to take advantage of Natasha on the first turn. This is also good in time situations, something we got to keep aware of, but at the same time, be careful. More Bystial monsters can actually also banish the Natasha because it is a light monster. So these are things to stay aware of. It does enable plays, but at the same time, it opens up a little bit of vulnerability, okay? So things to stay aware of. I still think it's a very strong and important interaction to keep in mind, and there's going to be a lot of times where instead of going to bring back the Ben 10, you actually want to search the Natasha, steal your opponent's bested monster, so you're removing it from the field for free, and using it to make your Beatrice since it is a level 6. Again, an interaction I thought was too important not to bring up here. Now the last darn thing I'm going to talk about in this video, listen guys, we are going to show a little bit of a replay at the end that talks about playing against the Bystial cards, and just basically how strong Drytron still can be in the current format. Alright guys, the last card I have to show you before we hop into this replay to close us out is something that Esteban brought up, he was advocating for, people were getting feisty about it in the comments section, but we got to talk about it, is Beta. We got to talk about the Beta, alright? Listen, I have said in the past, if you play Beta, you are a Beta, but right now is the only time in the history of forever that I'm giving that a pass. Okay, I'm giving it a pass. I think it's actually worth considering playing the Beta. And here's the reason. It allows you to play Delta and Gamma as one-ofs if you would like to do so, and it also lets you recur monsters and punish bad players who remove them from your grave prior to going for the Bystial effect, prior to you going for your Drytron monsters effects. So that's something that is worth considering and playing the Beta for. Now, do you think that the benefits outweigh the fact that Beta is kind of a do-nothing name? It can't return Medionis if it gets banished. There's still so many downsides to this card, guys. I'm not going to stop railing against Beta. Beta is still one of the most mid, if not the most mid Drytron cards ever printed. So we got to keep that in mind when thinking about this card. But this is the only time where I'm giving people a pass for playing Beta, and I've been testing it myself just to kind of see if it comes up, and I want your guys' opinions in the comments down below. But if you don't know what this does, it returns a banished Drytron monster to the graveyard, which means if they're banished by a Bystial monster, you have access to them later in the game. If you already attempted their effect, or if you didn't attempt the effect, you are now welcome to do so because you've returned it to the graveyard. It's worth considering. I have to mention it. Now we can dive into a replay where I kind of can talk a little bit more about how Drytron can play through Bystial cards and tier element cards and all these other insane things, and kind of tease the new profile. If you guys want to see it again, help us smash 100 likes and I'll show you the new Drytron list. But without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, my friends, to conclude this video, I think I'll give you guys a little bit of a teaser of this next build of Drytron, and we do face off against a Bystial build, and we do implement some of these cards, and I'll even get to talk to you a little bit more about how we're using some of these specific cards in this Perfection Drytron build, and you'll see how well we fare against the tier element Bestids before you. Now, mind you, of course, again, we have to flag the fact it is tricky. We are really fighting an uphill battle against some of these cards, and how many people are playing them is going to make it even more difficult for us to prosper. But that's why we can't give up. We got to stick to the Drytron plan, and that's what we're doing here with this opening hand, opening up the pre-prep, going to get access to Ben 10 as fast as possible to establish that early perfection. Mind you, look at their opening. They didn't have anything for us to be worried about, which means we can kind of turbo on through the combo. And you're going to get to see what this nice full board looks like. And it's a good demonstration of what this deck is capable of ending on and this particular build. And in Game 3, you're going to see some of the wild stuff, all right? But right now, it's looking pretty standard. Oh, you see it a little early here. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Exposed. What's that card I'm playing? Don't tell anyone. But look at this. This end board is absolutely ludicrous. We are ending on so much. Haven't even used Gamma yet. This is all 5 names used. And then Ben 10 getting the second orange light locked and loaded with an IP on top of all of this. And we send Trias. And there's nothing else to be written. So this is a little teaser at that. But in games 2 and 3, you'll see us face off against the Bestids and a bit more of a difficult thing to deal with. So, of course, they're going first in game 2. And setting up like kind of a mid board. The mills were mid. But at the same time, it was like not worth being worried about. My friends and I wondered, why the heck wouldn't you just make the Dweller there, which would have been crippling? I mean, I had the droplets regardless, but still. Anyway, we attempt to play this out, and you're going to see where I get kind of smacked here. Not only by the insane mills that our opponent was able to rip off of, but I go for the droplets here, and then try and play out the board kind of standard, just alpha zeta line, but oh man, that super poly is gonna come in hard. Not to spoil it, but look at this. Oh, smacked up. And this is 100% leading me to concede after he goes to negate my Diviner. Because I could theoretically play out of it if the Diviner resolved, but you bet it ain't. So going into game 3, this is where stuff really kind of takes a turn for what I want to talk about during this video. And we do bring in the bells. I sided in the bells for going first. Taking out the droplets, bringing in the bells. Trust me, especially in matchups like this, that's what you're going to want to be doing. Hitting the Magnum Mutt, whatever you call it, the Bystial, with the bell, and now being able to play safe for the remainder of the turn with orange and Super Quantal in hand, and we're going to be able to end on a very formidable board. That's intentionally a little like on the back end of things. You'll see how we choose to play it out, but it gets the mission done 100%. Now, mind you, look at their hand. The game's not going to be over after turn 1, so you guys are going to have to stay frosty on how we choose to play this one out. So the Magnum Mutt's coming out. We're trying to do some things. He's trying to bait us pretty much here because we've got the Apo, but the droplets comes down with the roar of 1,000 thunders, and he's able to use those Bestials now to kind of climb back into the advantage game. However, we're not going to let him get too far. This is the importance of having the orange light to play around things like droplets. We're going to get to negate that obnoxious tier element card, not let him get that engine started, and although our board is going to be cleared, we have guaranteed follow-up in hand in the form of a Natasha we contribute, and he does have the interruption in the form of this guy right here, Fenrir. This card is diabolical, as well as a Bystial he searched, but any Drytron will bring us right on back in, and we are 100% in business here. Don't have to worry about a single one of those interruptions, lining up that orange light, and now the Fenrir is irrelevant. So we got the effect of the Bystial in hand out of the way, and we were able to play around the Fenrir by searching that orange light, and now we can just full combo. Here's the deal. I will flag that I did biff a little bit while doing this combo, because when he hit off the Nat, I was setting up a play to use the Nat, and then realized, oh shoot, yeah, that got hit off. So the play will look a little weird here, and that's because I was trying to go for a play with a play with Boral Sword to clear out the game, and then I remembered that the Nat was gone. So here I actually don't end up going for the kill, but I do line up a good amount of interruptions, and we also deal with the fact that that guy could remove our cards even during the battle phase. The Bystial card had removal. It's insane. It was really, really good, so we got to stay ready for that. But now, hit him with the Underworld Goddess using his Bystial. It's too big to be swung over, leaving him on just a Halveness and locking up the game. Very, very strong stuff here. And I'm telling you guys, this build is diabolical. So if you want to see it, help us smash 100 likes. And if you guys like Drytron stuff, you're in the right place. And I appreciate each and every one of you guys that are coming to check out these videos. And if you guys want to see stuff outside of Drytrons, let me know in the comments down below. Hopefully we can play some other things around here too, but you already know what the best deck is in my eyes, 110%. LoganJYA signing off. Have a great day. I will see you chumps later. Peace.